Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I am your host, Rico Muhammad. That handsome fellow with the same haircut as me next door to me, that's our good friend Chuck Snow. This is the Rates and Lanes podcast. If you guys would do us a huge favor, we ask that you would please like, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know some different things that you guys would want us to cover here on the show. If you guys could do that for us, that helps us out tremendously, helps us get out to a bigger and broader audience, and we would love to get a chance to try to grow the show. And with that being said, I'm going to ask my good friend Chuck, how are you this evening, Chuck?
We're doing great. It's been a little bit cold up here, and we've got a lot of snow, as a lot of our American friends have had as well. So we've just about had a belly full of winter, and it's only the end of January.
Yeah, you guys sent the Canadian weather down this way for this week.
It's funny, though, where I live in Southern Ontario, we didn't get the cold weather that they got some places. You know, it was not 30 below zero or anything.
That's wild. Kind of experience down here in the States. This has probably been the worst winter weather we've probably experienced in some time. The southeast kind of down here where I'm in Atlanta, I'm on the lower end of Atlanta on the south side. We didn't get hit too bad, but I'm hearing that we were kind of at the demarcation line. Anything above everything north of us kind of got slammed with ice and snow. But down here, and when they were talking about it, I was trying to be as strategic as I possibly could. So I loaded out of Atlanta, went south down to Montgomery for a delivery, bounced up just a little bit north right outside of Birmingham, picked up a load and went back south down to Florida for another delivery. And now I'm back here in Atlanta. So I kind of doing the two-step shuffle all the way around the weather.
Rico, I'm not a jealous guy. You've known me for a number of years, but if that's one thing I envy the American trucker to be able to do that the Canadian can't, you've got that freedom to move around that big country. From like here, you can go from Atlanta to Montgomery and Montgomery over to Florida. We can't do stuff like that within Canada because most of our freight goes from east to west. And when we go down into the US with Canadian trucks, there's no legal loopholes or anything else that you can do for a Canadian to be able to pick up a load in Atlanta and go to Montgomery and go pick up a load in Montgomery and go to Florida, because that's called cabotage or interstating. And man, they can throw the book at you for that one because you didn't break any US DOT violation, but you broke federal labor and immigration laws, which with everything going on with ICE and everything else right now, I don't think you want to do anything like that. It would just be very foolish.
Yeah, you got a point there. What the thing that kind of has me, with everything in the state of the industry, all the stuff that is going on, though, it just kind of goes to show that the Canadians kind of operate with a little bit of integrity. Because, man, I tell you, when some of these people have gotten into the country and gotten into the industry, it was like the hell with whatever rules it is. We do whatever we want to do, how we want to do it.
Well, Rico, no. Don't get the wrong idea. Forget like the core group of us. We have integrity, and we've had some new players coming into the industry from other countries, and they have integrity. I'm not saying, but there are some players that have come in that have zero integrity. And you know what? There are some local homegrown people without integrity, and we have some offshore people that have come here from all over the world, and they operate like they really don't care about anything. They have no respect for any of our laws or anything else. Maybe where they come from, there is no law and order, and they're acting that way here. So You know what? Us guys that are uh, law abiding, we're not going to go down the states and start interstating, especially now, moving
Yeah,
loads within the states. It's just years ago, people did it. And
yeah,
you could and that was way before we had electronic logs, and people used to do all sorts of creative things, make up phony bills of lading and all sorts of stuff. You dare not do that stuff these days. There's just, you're going to get caught. You can't do it. So there's no sense even trying. It's just, but there is stuff going on. There's no two doubts about it.
Well, let's give a little bit of an update before we jump too far off
Yeah.
into the weeds. So we
Yes.
got currently right now the talking about diesel prices anyway. The U.S. average is sitting at $3.53 per gallon. That is up from up 7 cents since last week. So one thing that I have been recognizing over the past couple of days is that the fuel has been kind of creeping up ever so slightly, not big jumps, but ever so slightly. It's the cost of diesel fuel is starting to creep up just a little bit. And going to the national spot market rates, and these are all-in rates that includes fuel surcharge and everything, line haul and fuel surcharge. For dry van segment, it is 3 cents lower than it was this time last week, showing an average of $2.30 per mile. For flatbeds, they are up by 1 cent since this time last week, and that is they are showing an average of $2.59 per mile for flatbeds. And reefer is checking in at 3 cents lower than it was this time last week at $2.79 per mile. Um, and that's on average across the United States. Of course, your mileage may vary depending upon where you are and what the market
Yes.
conditions are in your location, but those are the averages for the United States on average. Um, so, with that being said, we got that little bit of housekeeping out of the way. The industry is still kind of in flux, it's still the hot new, I don't want to say buzzword, but it's definitely become um, the word that is really on everybody's radar is freight fraud. That seems to have really kind of just taken over, and it's really become a real problem. And I don't know whether it be some of you small guys out there, you may experience. I know that a lot of things that brokers are trying to do to try to help curtail some of this stuff, such as uh, you taking a picture with your driver's license in your truck in the background with all that, with the your numbers and all. It's all kind of different stuff that I've been experiencing on an anecdotal level that some brokers have been requesting in order to book loads with you. Running into some brokers, of course, don't want to load you if you don't have any inspections on your CSA or whatever. But um, I ran into that situation. I hadn't had an inspection in the last 2 years,
Right.
but I'm not running from them. I just haven't had the opportunity to have one done, and I'm currently not volunteering to go.
Well, no, but you know what? Because if you're doing everything right and your truck looks clean, you're not getting pulled in. They don't want to pull you in.
Yeah,
They know you're coming in. They go, oh, him. Don't even bother with this guy. He's clean. They don't want that. That's a waste of time. They're looking for meat. Like if
yeah,
you're looking for a steak, are you going to buy a steak that has a great big bone and no meat, or are you going to buy something where you can, chow down and have a good dinner? It's the same thing, Rico. They want violations. So when they get somebody in that looks like, oh my God, where'd this guy come from? Where'd this truck come from? Let's get him in. Let's get him off the road. Those are the guys they go after. So it means you're a good operator. I think we had an idea back when Hank Seaton, our attorney friend, who's still convalescing from an illness, when he was a big proponent, which I totally agree. And maybe Sean Duffy's going to do this with the desktop audit, okay, and charge the carriers, charge $500 a year. And and I guess the big guys, the big fleets will have to pay more, whatever. But at least have a desktop audit done, and have it done by private consultants if we have to, that are contracted to the government. Everybody's a winner.
Yeah, we definitely have to. There definitely has to be some type of way to figure out something to. But they still, I think that they're on the right track right now as far as trying to get. So there's a big, huge fight, and I think the federal judge upheld that ruling that California has to start
Yes,
abiding by the licensing. They can't renew those licenses, and I think that was the right call. I definitely believe that was the right call and the right decision. We have got to get our the licensing has to get in order. It shouldn't be in state to because it's a federal license. It definitely there should be some type of standard that everybody needs to meet, and the code needs to be enforced across the board as far as being the English language proficiency. I think is a huge one because I went to a couple of shippers and I was talking to someone about this the other day. And if the English language proficiency has been on the books forever,
yeah,
why the hell are shippers and receivers printing off instructions in several different languages?
they're
This
causing the problem. They're feeding the problem.
exactly, and so I know I started to notice these small little things. I was like, wait a minute. I went to some I think it was a grocery warehouse or something like that. But they had all of the different instructions for that warehouse printed off in I kid you not 3 different languages. I think it was English, of course, which is necessary, which should Spanish. Um, I think it was Mandarin
Really?
and also and I think and I want to say I don't know if it was Ukrainian or Russian or whatever, but they had it columns, and I should have taken a picture of it of whatever that would have been great for post on the Instagram. I
Oh
should have
yeah,
taken a picture of it and put that up next. I'm pretty sure I'll run across it again. I'll make sure to do that. But I just don't understand why that is a thing, and I think that one thing kind of leads into another, and I think all of this ties in all of the issues that we're having from the English language proficiency to the freight fraud. I think that all of this stuff is somehow interconnected and intertwined.
100%. And to add to that, the let's just talk about for 1 second with safety the airline industry. If you've
Mm-hmm.
ever seen, if you've ever seen the photograph of how many planes are in the sky simultaneously, it looks like I-95 running through Jersey with airplanes. Okay,
Right.
each one has like 300 passengers or something. It's people that don't like to fly. I always point out you have a much greater chance of dying on the way to the airport in your automobile than you do in the air. Why? The airline industry figured out many years ago there's one language in the airline industry, one, English. That's it.
Yep.
That is the common language, common denominator. It
Right.
works. Okay. Why the hell are we doing this with trucking? One language, especially North America. Now, Canada, we have Quebec, but I'm sure that if a Quebecois, that's somebody that lives in Quebec, if they're unilingual, which you can be legally in Canada, but they're unilingual and they end up in Arkansas or something and they can't pass their exam, their English proficiency exam, they're done. You know what? It's your home. It's America. That's the rule. When I'm a guest in your home, which Canadians are a guest in the American's home, when we're in the USA, we have to follow your rules.
So we were talking a little bit before we got started here, Chuck, and you were saying that things aren't looking too rosy up on the Canadian side of things. You care to kind of pull the curtain back, pull the veil back, so to speak, and kind of give us some insights on how things are looking up there on the Canadian side of the
Well,
operations?
yeah, you know what? We're getting it from all sides. I think we're having a bit of in Canada. We're having people aren't buying nearly as much as they were. We're not building houses right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. When we're not building houses. Our flatbeds aren't running the way they normally are. And then when you put up those houses, people are buying carpeting and flooring and lamps and furniture and mattresses, a new house. People want to have new stuff. So there's none of that going on right now. And that's number one. Number two, we've been adversely affected by the tariffs. Now it's hit badly, but not as bad as it could have, but it's still hit fairly hard. We don't have nearly as much manufacturing here as we used to because we depend on the Americans. And we have a government here that is not, and I will say Trump came out swinging, and rather than try to work with him, our government decided it was in our best interest not to. And there's some backtracking going on, but it has hurt several businesses. And now there's some kerfuffle that our prime minister went over to China, made a deal with the Chinese to bring in 50,000 electric cars a year into Canada, and in the hopes they're going to open up a Chinese-owned manufacturing plant here. Well, I doubt China is going to build a plant here for 50,000 cars. They're not going to do it. And you don't see nearly as many trucks on the road as you did before. And our trucking market, very similar to yours, except maybe even a little worse, considering how small our country is population-wise. Our market seems to be oversaturated with trucking companies. Always has been, but we've been able to kind of handle it okay, where I think a lot of them are having problems now. There's just not enough work to keep them going.
So let me ask you this, Chuck. I don't think I ever asked you this. I know that they're pretty, you say, saturated as far as Canadian companies are concerned. From a standpoint of independence, how does the independent market look in Canada versus like the United States? Is it very similar or is it different?
It's very similar. We have independent. I would say you have a lot more independence down there, only because you've got, I call it the freedom to move, okay, within America. Like you could go and you could take a load out to Portland, Oregon tonight, and then even though you've never probably taken very many loads to Portland, get a load from Portland to, let's say, Chicago, and Chicago back home to Atlanta. So an independent can do that sort of thing very easily down there. Where here, repositioning of trucks is harder. But there is some independents. I know some. Usually independents are very specialized. Okay, they haul, they'll have a double drop deck, or they'll have a drop deck, or they'll have a curtain sider. Maybe they have a reefer, but if they have a reefer, they're not running as rogue as a lot of the American guys do. It's a reefer guy that hauls stuff out of Leamington, Ontario, and he goes into Florida, and he brings back plants or flowers or something. That's what you find more of with the independents. You don't find that many that are just running all over the country, because it's too hard to pick up a load here and there to reposition yourself.
Gotcha. I was kind of, when we were talking about that just now, I was kind of my antennas kind of jumped up a little bit.
Our manufacturing in Canada is fairly limited, not exclusive, but it's concentrated between southern Ontario. So there's a highway, if you know where Detroit, Michigan is, just over the bridge from Detroit in Windsor, Ontario. There's a highway, it's called 401. It's it's probably one of the busiest truck highways on the continent, if not in the world. There's that many trucks running it because of the automotive industry, especially. And it goes into Quebec. And all along that highway, there are manufacturing plants. And that is where a vast majority of the Canadian manufacturing, what's left of it, is done. And an awful lot of the Canadian manufacturing is automotive related.
So and that's kind of interesting. So, and from what I understand, the automotive industry is kind of going through its own little thing right now as well. So that's kind of having an effect on the market up there as well.
Very much so. I spent 4 hours on Sunday outside plowing snow at my farm because I like to. I'll be honest. I could hire somebody, but number one, if I hire somebody, he's not going to come when I need him. And even if he's on a monthly, like a seasonal contract, he's going to come, and then it may come again, but I may need to get out. And on Sunday,
Right.
the snow was coming down as fast as I could plow it. And now that I'm retired, I really do like plowing snow. But I spent a fair bit of time at the end of our laneway, and almost every truck I saw was food related. And I've noticed
Mm.
that it's a real concentration. We have 35 million people or something, 40 million people here. Everybody eats. Not everybody buys new cars. Not everybody buys new furniture, but everybody's got to eat.
Right.
And that's why I think being in the food transportation business is really that's the place to be if you want steady work.
Yes.
Whether it's reefer or dry, better with a reefer. But even if you specialize in food and you're doing with dry vans and your customers, or whether they're brokers or direct customers, if they know that you know about going into grocery warehouses and you know what you're doing, you're going to get the business. It's just really it's just really, really important.
So, Chuck, I got to kind of take us off of the beaten path just a little bit before we getting kind of close to our point where we want to kind of wind things down. But for people that are right now, with everything being in flux in the industry and stuff like that, the way it is right now, and a lot of people have the inclination that, hey, I'm a small guy, I can't go in and talk to certain people or whatever. Where should they be looking to maybe be able to cut out a little path for themselves, or cut out a little niche, so to speak? What kind of suggestions do you have along those lines?
You know what? The easiest thing to do is go to your smaller shippers. Your big shippers will not, in most cases, there's no more traffic manager at the plant for the big companies. Your Fortune 100s, Fortune 500s. They don't have. It's all centralized at some big office in a skyscraper in New York or Chicago somewhere, or Dallas or Atlanta. So your small manufacturers or your small distributors, they like dealing with little guys. And if you can get into one of those companies and do your homework, what is in demand? What sort of things? Not just throw something out. They said it was the death of vinyl records. They weren't making any more records. Now all of a sudden, people have started to appreciate vinyl records again.
Yeah.
So go to a record manufacturer. There's a perfect one. The big guys, the C.H. Robinsons, the Werners, the Hunts, the Schneiders, there's no fit there. The guy may have a load or two a week.
Right.
Maybe they're shipping a full load with 10 drops, or maybe they've got 10 LTLs and they could put together a milk run. You got to think outside the box too, as a service provider. How can I be a service? But go
So
to
don't be afraid to take on something that's a little bit not necessarily one pick, one drop situation.
Oh, definitely. Think out of the box. Find out how you can make somebody's life easier. These smaller companies will talk to you. They're actually looking for one truck operators quite often because a lot of their business is transactional. They may sell a load of widgets to a guy in Arkansas, and then sell them one a month or one every 2 months. Those are the people you want to go to, your specialty companies, and become part of the fabric there. It's always been the case. There's nothing new about that. My friend Ronnie, who ran a very successful trucking company in New York State, he always says niches make riches. Have a niche with a customer, a commodity, or something. Be an expert at something. Why do you go to a certain restaurant? Because they make great pancakes, or they make great waffles, or they make great steak or whatever. Um, be that guy and go to these little companies and tell them what you do. Breweries, small cottage breweries. Although alcohol now is starting to wane down, but there's still lots of alcohol being drunk. It's not like
Oh yeah.
people. There's no shortage, but the big guys, the big breweries, they've got things in place. Go to the small cottage breweries. They're all over the place,
Yep.
places like that, and see what you can do for them. Those smaller companies are gold for the independents.
So what is if they're looking up or trying to find do research on these type of companies, what would you say for a smaller carrier? What would you say the annual income for something like those type of companies that you just described? Where would you that 50 million and under, or what
Oh
do you?
yeah, definitely 50 million and under. Those are the guys you go. If they're doing more than $50 million a year business, they're probably tied up with a decent broker. They're probably spending. They got a $5 million freight spend or something like that. They've got a huge freight spend, so they will get tied up with a broker. Go to the smaller ones. Brokers don't really. It's transactional. You can compete on those. Certainly the big brokers don't. Most of the big brokers no longer want the transactional type business. It's just not, especially the small stuff. It's not worth it.
Okay.
You have to remember, a lot of people don't understand the broker's business. It costs the same amount of money to take that order and send it through the entire system for that's $1,000 order or a $10,000 order. It doesn't matter. It's that paper flow, okay? And for somebody that's going to give them 5 loads a week, it doesn't really mean that much to a great big company like whether it's C.H. Robinson or J.B. Hunt. It doesn't move. It just doesn't move the needle. Where to a little guy, that's really important.
Right. Now, as far as how would someone maybe if they don't want to do the leg work, but they would say it just might be easier to just deal with a broker.
Okay.
What kind of tips or suggestions would you give them as far as being able to consistently work with a good broker that might be in their area or the areas that they want to service?
I got it. Go to your brokers, your local brokers, make yourself a presence in their life. Okay. Let them know who you are face to face, not on the telephone. Make an appointment to go see them. Offer to buy them lunch, or, offer to take somebody to lunch. Go in with some donuts and coffee and go and talk to them. Make an appointment to go and see them and say, listen, and go in organized, go in dressed up. You don't have to wear a suit, but go in dressed up, not like you just delivered a load, and go in with all your stuff. Find out and you learn more by asking questions. Ask questions. What do you ship? What does your freight look like? What's your biggest problem? And I had a case once. I'll just tell you how weird things are. I remember driving by this company, and they had trailers in the door. It was a fair-sized company. Couldn't wait to get back to the office and call them. The woman's name was Michelle. I'll never forget this. And she said to me, yeah, I got loads going to Long Island, New York. They pay $700. You want them? Take them or leave them. And she was just like that. She was that curt. And okay, thanks. Appreciate your time. Have a lovely day and it was on a Friday, I think. I said, have a nice weekend. I left it at that. On Saturday, a customs broker client friend dropped into the office because he had something in our warehouse. And he said, oh, I got a real good sales lead for you. It was the same woman. I kid you not. Okay. So I said, geez, I called her Monday. Well, I'll call her again, and I'll say that so-and-so sent me. I called her Monday. I was out in that part of Toronto again. I happened to be out. I said, listen, I was given your name by so-and-so. Oh, yes. If you're available, please come in. This is the same person. I swear on my kids, this is verbatim. I go in. She said, "I'm glad you're here. We're having some problems." And I said, "Well, what's your problem?" She said, "Well, late shipments, and we have a 73% incident of damage." I
Wow.
said, "Why are you having all this damage?" "Well, here, let me show you." And she walks me out into the warehouse or to the shipping area. And there are some trailers that belong to Overnight. And they were all regular dry vans, spring ride, no logistic, no e-tracking. And they all had roll-up doors. And they were 13 foot or 12.6 roll-up doors. And it was loads of pre-hung doors on skids, and you could see where these guys were taking it, putting them in the trailer and whacking the top. Well, her boss comes out, Eddie, and the guy said, "I got 7," and he was a loudmouth, okay, big guy like you, but a real loudmouth, and he said, "I got 73% incident of damage. If you can fix this effing thing," he swore a lot, "you got all my business, but nobody seems to be able to do that." And I said, "Well, let me see what we can do here. I think I can fix your problem." "If you can fix my problem, you got all my business. It's not even the money, it's the damage. They're killing me." So she said, "Do you want to see what we're doing with these people?" I said, "Sure." She brings me to her desk, puts me beside her, hands me all their freight bills of what this LTL carrier is charging them. I go through them and I'm looking at, I gotta tell you, like my eyes, Rico, they are popping. They're the size of saucers. I can't believe how much, like, I'm looking at gold. I'm seeing my retirement, like, so I'm 40 years old. I'm seeing my retirement like right before me. And then her boss comes in. He says, you think you can fix this?" I said, "Not only can I fix your damages, I can save you a fortune." He said, "You know what? What's the catch?" I said, "There is no catch. You let me run the show. You make the product, I'll run the show." And that's how it all started. And you know what? We had a great customer. And what we did with all this LTL, these partial loads, we built full truckloads. So we
Right.
would have 8 and 10 drops. And it worked out to be a phenomenal relationship for about 5 years. And that's how you got to come in with a solution. Don't come in with the same as everybody else. Don't come in, "I'm going to do it cheaper. I'm going to be 50 cents cheaper." That's a race to
Right.
the
Right.
bottom.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Don't do that. Okay. Because if they will take that bait, then they're going to take the next guy's bait who's going to be 50 cents cheaper, and everybody's going to lose their trucks. I think the industry has proven that now. You can't
I
work
saw
for
something. I saw something, and I think it was a reel on Instagram, and I was like, man, that makes great sense. I would love to maybe start implementing that within my own business as well. But the guy was saying, don't compete on price. He's like, if someone has you need to have your price and understand what it is that you're pricing. And if someone wants a cheaper price or whatever, then you need to start taking away features to feed.
100%. He was right. You can't compete on price, especially in trucking. There's not enough money in it. I don't have to tell you, you've been doing it long enough, Rico.
Right.
And you look at some of the people in our industry, and they're paying a dispatch service for backhauls. They're paying a factoring company for financing, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on and on. You're making 5% on a great day. How the hell can you give away all your money? And you can't lower your price. You got to get more
Right.
money because it costs a lot of money to run trucks. We all know that. It's very expensive.
Absolutely.
Buying the truck is a cheap part. Even if it's a $250,000 Peterbilt, that's the cheapest part of the whole thing. You got to put tires on it. You got to put brakes on it. You got to put fuel in that tank. You have to insure it. You have to pay road tolls. You have to pay highway taxes, everything else. That's the expensive part. How the hell are you going to compete on price? Don't start cutting
Yeah.
people's rates. That's a race to the bottom. And it never, one thing I've noticed in 52 years of being in this industry, that when It never works because when you compete on price, if you get a customer because you beat the other guy's price, somebody is coming and they're beating your price.
Yep, eventually.
They always do because the customer has set the bar low.
Well, Chuck, we got to. I think that's a good place for us to kind of put a pin in it for this week. I definitely encourage everybody to begin to start. One day, all of the things that Chuck just talked about. Maybe let's start trying to for some of the guys out there. Let's start to try to make identify one person a week or something like that. If just do it one person a week, or if you can do one person a day, that would be great. Or one potential company a day, and kind of like make steps and strides every day or every week to have something accomplished. This way you can start. If you start now, you'll be surprised where you may end up by the end of the month, or in that case, in 6 months, 3 months down the road, where you may end up and how it may change your business and everything else. So I'm encouraging everyone to maybe begin that process of starting and striving to try to do at least one person a week or one person a day, one company a day, identifying them and start reaching out to them and seeing if you can begin to make some headway along those lines. Anything that you would like to say, Chuck, before we
Yeah,
wrap
Rico,
it
I
up?
appreciate that. Yeah, I just want to add something that maybe helps some of our, if I can help one listener on this one of our viewers, it will really help them. Anthony Robbins, I'm a student of his from many years ago. And he really pointed out some great stuff that I've been able to use in my life and in my business. He does this free seminar now once a year. And he's doing it, I think,
this weekend, I think.
Well, but you can get it online. You don't have to go anywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have an opportunity, and I know a lot of you can't because of weather and money and everything else, at least take the time to take this seminar online. This is gold. And you could take what he's going to give you and apply it to any business, especially trucking. And this may be what some of our listeners need to put a little bit of pep in their step and give them that courage they need to go on.
Yep, great timing because it's the beginning of the year and no time like the present to begin and start.
That's right. And the longest journey begins with a single footstep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you guys for your time and attention. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you spent some time here with us on the Rates and Lanes podcast, and we're always grateful for you doing so. Once again, please like, share, and subscribe. Helps us out tremendously. Doesn't cost you a dime, but it helps us out a whole lot. We greatly appreciate it. And with that being said, we want you guys to continue to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise. God bless you and good night.
Catch you on the flip flop. God bless.